So welcome to the first Friday of our Elul Kollel Baker. And this week we covered a lot of interesting topics connected to Tshuvah, connected to Elul. We discussed the Rambam's halachas, the first two chapters of Tshuvah and how it's done and what's supposed to be done. We brought many of the Rebbe's explanations and Chasidic teachings on Tshuvah. We covered the first chapter of Igeres Tshuvah. A lot of interesting concepts in regards to Tshuvah. But today I would like to learn, together with all of you here, something on the Parsha and connect it to Chodesh Elul as well. This Parsha is Shoftim, which has many interesting halachas, many interesting mitzvahs. And we're going to focus today on something that's in the end of the Parsha, known as Egla Arufa. But a little background. When Yosef HaTzadik, when Yosef was a little boy, his mother passed away during childbirth of giving birth to Binyamin. Okay? And she passed away. And he was an orphan at a very young age. He was favored by his father, by Yaakov, but despised by his brothers. And when he was 17 years old, he was studying Torah with his father. And his father sent him to see how his brothers are doing. They were out pasturing the sheep out of town. Go check up on them, see how they are. And when he came to them, they kidnapped him. They put him into a pit, sold him to one group, who then sold him to another group. Eventually he ends up in Mitzrayim. He's sold and he becomes a slave for a man named Potiphar. We all know the story. Things get even worse. He gets falsely accused and he ends up in jail in Mitzrayim. So here's Yosef alone in Mitzrayim. Now, through a chain of events, miraculously, and Hashem's spirit, which allowed him to interpret dreams, he ends up the viceroy of F.R.E.E. in Mitzrayim. And there's a hunger, as we know, and people from all over are coming to get food, including Yosef's own brothers. And here, he has many interactions with his brothers, and he's very harsh with them initially. He tests them and figures out that they really regret their behavior. And finally he says, I'm Yosef, your brother, who you sold to Mitzrayim. Go up to Eretz Yisrael, he says, because Eretz Yisrael is higher than any other part in the world. Go up to Eretz Yisrael and tell our father Yaakov to come, and come see me move to Mitzrayim. But he sends with them a bunch of wagons, agolis. And the reason why he sent wagons is because he was trying to hint, to show something to Yaakov Avinu. What was he trying to show him? That I remember exactly what we learned the last time we were together, which was 22 years ago. Okay? And they were studying the halacha, the mitzvah from this week's Parsha, about Egla Arufa. And indeed, when the brothers came to Yaakov, who thought that his son Yosef was dead for so many years, and they said, we met your son Yosef, he's alive, he's in Mitzrayim. It was hard to believe. He mourned him for so many years. But then, when he saw the wagons, he said, I get it. This is him. What's this halacha? What were they learning about wagons, and what was he trying to hint to him or to remind Yaakov about their learning together? So the Torah tells us that if there's a person, a traveler, who comes to a city, and he passes through the city, spends some time there and so on, and he goes, and when he leaves the city, he gets killed or he dies, we're not sure exactly what happened, they find a dead body which is lying somewhere next to a city. We don't know who killed him. He has no family. We're not sure what the story is with this person. And the Torah has biblical commandments of how we're supposed to treat this episode. What do you do? Ziknei ha'ir, the people from the elders of the city, and really commentaries tell us, and the Gemara explains this, that Sanhedrin from Yerushalayim, the head of the highest court among the Yidden, a group of them would have to go and measure from where they found the corpse until all the neighboring cities, what's the closest city which is held responsible for that body. And then once that's measured, there was an entire procedure. They took an egla, which is a small calf, and they would bring it to a valley outside of the city and hit or break the back of this calf, kill it, and this would be an atonement for the fact that this person was killed. Now let's understand this a little bit. It's not a kosher shechita, correct. Let's understand this a little bit. You have Yidden who are told, and all of us are told, that we should be hospitable and help people. And here's a person that if we would have taken care of his food, if we would have made sure that he has what to drink, if we would have made sure that when he leaves he's not going alone, someone's escorting him out of the city, perhaps this would never have happened to him. So we hold ourselves responsible to a certain degree that this person died. Okay. Now this person is an individual who has no family, he never married, he has no children, and he's in a situation where he was taken away from this world before he could what's called bear fruit. He couldn't have any children. So let's look at Rashi, who talks about this mitzvah and tells us a little bit of the background of why this is taking place. So Rashi says like this: they take this small calf, they break its back. Why do they do that? Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and really Rashi is bringing this from Masechta Seita Daf Mem Hey, page 45, and he slightly changes the lashon around, but he says as follows: Hashem said, "Let a calf who's a year old, a baby calf, which did not have the opportunity to bear fruit, meaning it's too young, it didn't have any children of its own, any baby calves, and it should get broken, its back, meaning killed, in a place, its neck, thank you, its neck, in a place which does not bear any fruit, which is this valley, because once that was done, Chazal said, this valley, you're not allowed to plant anything, you're not allowed to plow anything there, this is a place which is going to be desolate. This area will never bear fruit to atone for this person who died before him being able to bear fruit, as a result of people not caring for him. He was in a city, he was a stranger, people should have taken care of him, they should have gave him food, they should have gave him drink, they should have made sure that he has what he needs. And this is the atonement for the person who we didn't allow him to have fruit. Okay? Fine. Now, it's very interesting that Rashi brings this, because we know Rashi on Chumash has a very specific way of explaining things. Rashi is here to tell us Shutei Shel Mikra, simple explanation of the pasuk. Rashi doesn't tell us reasons for mitzvahs. Okay? Generally speaking, Rashi doesn't tell us why certain things are the way they are. You have a mitzvah, Hashem said so, that's the reason. It's very rare. And even when Rashi does, he doesn't say, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem said, let this be an atonement for this one. It's a very strange Rashi, very different from usual. And the Rebbe asks this question, and he's going to explain it and give us some very interesting lessons, and I want to add a story to this as well, of what this means for us today. We know that everything in Torah, the word Torah is from Milashon Hira'ah, from the term of a guide, it's a lesson. It's not a history book only, it's not just a book of laws, it's also a guide, it's telling us how we're supposed to live. So there's something in this whole story about Yosef sending his father wagons to remind him about baby calves, to the halacha of the end of this week's Parsha, that if you find a person who died and we don't know who killed him, we don't know what happened to him, and you kill a baby calf and you drop it in a place that has no, in a valley which won't bear any fruit, because you want to atone for the fact that he didn't bear any fruit. So, number one, when it comes to, pardon me? In the Nachal, in valleys, but to say that you can never plow or plant anything there was something which is unique. Yeah. Yeah. Right. In the Beis HaMikdash, when we brought korbanos, there were different types of korbanos, various different types of offerings. You have one offering, which is here to bring atonement for the Yidden. Okay? Most korbanos, or many korbanos that were brought, the person did an aveira, he did a sin, whether it's on purpose or it's by mistake, he needs to go and bring a korban. This korban was always brought in the Beis HaMikdash. inside the temple, they offered this offering. There was another category of karbanis, and this was a carbon of bracha, or a carbon toida. You want to thank Hashem. It's not here to bring atonement for you, but it's here to offer your thanks to Hashem, or you made a promise to Hashem. A person went through something difficult and he was saved, he survived, he wants to offer gratitude. He brings an offering to the Beis HaMikdash. It's not because he sinned, he's atoning for it. And then you have karbanes, which are here to purify the people, to bring a tahara. For example, a mitzayra, a person who has tzaras, he brings a carbon. Now the general rule is as follows: a carbon which is here for atonement needs to be brought in the Beis HaMikdash. A carbon that's brought for purification purposes could be brought outside the Beis HaMikdash. Okay? So we have two categories. We have a category of a carbon which is here to bring kapara, to atone, and then we have a category of offerings which are here to purify. The one that's here for kapara is done in the Beis HaMikdash, and the one that's done outside, the one that's done for purification, is outside the Beis HaMikdash. Now, the exception, by the way, maybe you're thinking about this, is So'er HaMishtalech on Yom Kippur. That was done outside the Beis HaMikdash, right? We sent away a goat. We learned about this week. We sent away the goat as an atonement for the Yidden, and it was done outside the Beis HaMikdash. Here you have a kapara outside the Beis HaMikdash. So, what?
It's not a korban.
It's not a carbon, but the Elul is also not a carbon. Taking an animal as an offering. But the Rebbe answers this by saying that majority of the preparations of this goat were done in the Beis HaMikdash. But here you have a calf who's taken outside. What's the purpose of this calf? It's to atone, and the people of the city take responsibility. The elders of the city come and they say, we didn't mean to kill this person, or we didn't spill his blood. We should have cared for him. We're going to try to learn from this mistake and not let other people just go without food, without drink. Whether the person, we didn't know about it, or we were too busy to notice that someone else has a problem. Sometimes a person sees someone with an issue, and he says, I can't be bothered. Or he's so occupied with his own life that he can't notice that someone else, in this case, doesn't have food or drink, or they're a stranger in a new place. Maybe give them some guidance, help them out. Either way, the elders of the community said, this is not good. Either we're not noticing, or we're noticing and we don't care. So this egla, which was here to atone for the sin of the Yidden, that's a kapara, that should be brought inside the Beis HaMikdash. So when you learn the Chumash, and you notice that, hey, there's the first time we have, up until this point, the first time where you're bringing an animal to atone as a kapara, and it's not in the Beis HaMikdash. So Rashi notices that that's going to be a strong question, so he deviates from the regular way of never giving us reasons, almost never giving us reasons for mitzvahs, and says, let me explain to you, this is a very unique mitzvah. Hashem said that I want this carbon, which is for a kapara, and this animal, which is for a kapara, to be brought outside the Beis HaMikdash, because we have to atone for something very specific. A person who was not given the opportunity to bear fruit, to have children. He died prematurely. And this animal is going to be an atonement in a place and put in a nachal, in a valley, where it's also never going to be plowed and planted and so on to bring out that concept. And who's going to do it? The Rashi Sanhedrin, the people from the highest court, is going to come. Yerushalayim is going to come, and this may be a city which is very distant from Yerushalayim. They're going to travel. They're going to measure which city it belongs to. They're going to get the elders of that city. They're going to come out, and they're going to do this. Why? To atone for it. There's an interesting medrash that says that they didn't actually kill the animal. No, this is difficult to understand with Pshat of the Chumash, but the medrash says that they hit the animal on the back and basically gave him the push to go and find out who the murderer was and let him go. But in simple pshat, which we have to obviously go by, in simple pshat, the meaning of the Chumash is that they actually killed this animal. There's another question here. Why is this mitzvah? We have a principle that even the order of Torah is specific. So when you have a certain mitzvah in a certain place, it's there not by coincidence or Hashem wanted it to be there. There's a reason why that mitzvah is there. Up until this mitzvah, the halachas that we're told in Torah are about war. And after this section about the Eglah Rufa, it's again about war. It's again war. Why all of a sudden between these two wars do you put in an idea about a person who was killed? Not because of war, it's an individual. He wasn't involved in any defense of anything or offense of anything. He was going about his own life. Why is this mitzvah related to us here in the Parsha in between these two parts? There's a story related by Rabbi Aaron Soloveitchik about Rabbi Chaim Brisker. He says the following story. In 1905, in the town of Brisk, there was a fellow who was part of the Budunistin. Now, this was a group that was founded in 1897, and unfortunately it was very, very Jewish, but Jewish in the sense that the people involved were Jewish, but they replaced all of Yiddish values and all of Jewish laws and so on with a great zeal for Marxism. Okay, and that was their concept. They had a very strong movement. They would make fun of anything that's religious. They strongly tried to influence the youth to get away from anything that's Yiddishkeit. This particular fellow, let's call him Yassel, was an acquaintance of Reb Chaim Brisker. Whenever he would see him on Shabbos, he would deliberately take out a cigarette and light it in front of him just in spite. Now, one day, this person, in 1905, this Yassel, took a picture of Tsar, I think it was Tsar Nicholas, the last Tsar, Tsar Nicholas?
Yeah.
The last Tsar that was overthrown in 1917 in the Bolshevik Revolution. He took a picture of him and he shot an arrow or a bullet through the picture. Now in those days, in 1905, pre-revolution, there is no freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and of course he was arrested. And the local governor immediately sentenced him to execution. Okay, so here you have a Jewish boy, not religious in any sense. He was religious, but he's anti-religious. Makes a lot of problems for the local Jewish community. Always gets in the way. And here he's being sentenced, or was sentenced to be executed. This was right before Rosh Hashanah. They gave him, I think, 2 weeks. And they were going to kill him just before Sukkot. Now, yes, he was sentenced to be killed, but bribery worked wonders in Russia. It still works wonders in many places. And the Chaim Brisker got together a group of influential people in the community, and he said, I want you to find out who has to be paid how much to get him out of the execution. They found out. It was several thousand rubles, which was an astronomical amount. It was a public situation. People heard about it. He was already sentenced to be executed, but the right person getting the right amount of thousands of rubles, I heard the story was 5,000, but it's hard to believe it's such a astronomical amount of money in those days. They will release this yid. So Reb Chaim gets together the community and he says, we have to raise money, we have to get this guy out, save his life. And some people responded and said, 1 second. We have in this week's Parsha another mitzvah, you should get rid of the evil among you, or from within you. So listen, this fellow's a bad guy. It's causing a lot of problems. We're not killing him, but we don't have to go and raise money from a city who doesn't have at a time before the holidays when expenses are really high. We can't. Why? And besides, why are you getting involved in Chaim? He hated you more than anyone else and embarrassed you and hurt you. Chaim said, yes, the Torah says you should get rid of evil from within you. But that refers to very, very specific methods. You have to have 2 witnesses. That saw has to go to a court. It has to be tried. You can't just say someone has a problem, we're just going to let it go. And he insisted that money be raised. Now, it was very hard to raise the money, and they couldn't raise it. Erev Yom Kippur, Reb Chaim sent out a message. the shul is not going to open for Kol Nidre until we have the money that we need. And they still didn't get the money. So he said, not just for Kol Nidre, no one's going into this shul on Yom Kippur, period, if we don't have the money. They scrambled. And everyone gave what they could. They borrowed from here, they pawned out jewelry, whatever they were able to do to get up with the money. And Reb Chaim, together with a few other activists, brought this young man home a half hour before Yom Kippur. Saved his life. And then he went to shul, and actually he didn't, him and the group of people that helped, didn't have time to eat before the fast. They went straight into Yom Kippur from that. Very often a person looks around and says, I can't worry or I can't get involved with that person's problem. Okay? We're taking one individual and we're saying that he's a stranger who doesn't belong to the city, who was traveling on his own. No one was irresponsible. No one just dumped him. If he would have asked, we would have helped him. But Torah says you have to look at the individual person and care about one person like they're a whole world. The life of one person, whoever saves one nefesh miYisrael, it's as if he saves an entire world. Right? Now, why did Yaakov, let's go back a second, why did Yaakov teach his son Yosef this law right before he left? Why was this the final words? And the answer is, Yosef was going to be alone for a long time. 22 years. And during those 22 years, he was a slave, and he was a prisoner. And maybe at times he could have thought to himself, I'm just one guy. I'm just one person. Whatever I do, does it really matter? Do I have to stay true to my roots? Do I need to be strong in my identity as a Jew? Maybe I'm just, whatever, a kid, one person, doesn't really matter. But when his father taught him this law of Egla Rufa, what he was teaching him was that don't undermine the value of an individual. Don't say, whether it's about ourselves, the way we look at ourselves and say, I'm just one person. If I do something wrong, who cares? Right? I don't really count. I don't really matter. Or it's the way we look at other people. And we say, it's just one person. The world doesn't revolve around them. Who cares if they're suffering? God forbid. The laws of Egla Rufa is expressing to us how crucial that one person who's, in a sense, without an identity, their life is, that all the elders come and they say, we are taking responsibility, we want to atone for this issue. Why does Torah put this here? Between two wars? For a similar reason. Because when persons at war, when armies and soldiers are in battle, there's dead corpses all around. People talk about what happened during the hunger in Russia, pre-World War II. There were corpses all over the place, to the extent that they stopped even paying attention to it. They become immune to it. People go to war, they're in a battlefield, lives become, the value of it is looked at differently, or it's threatened to be looked at differently. So Torah says we're talking about wars of mitzvah, sometimes it's wars of defense, and sometimes it's wars of offense, and sometimes it's wars that are permissible for other reasons. But don't lose the value of how much one person is worth. Don't say, listen, there's a greater picture here, right? You have to accomplish something. Whatever happens, happens. Right? You have to really, really take into account the life of every single person, of every single individual. And this is why Rashi comes and in our Parsha and says, I'm going to deviate from the norm and tell you the reason for this mitzvah. And not just quote it and say the Gemara said, which Rashi usually does, but tell you Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem said, to express and underscore the importance of this. That it's a mitzvah, it's something which Hashem says that must atone, it matters, and we can't just say, who cares what happens. I want to stop for a moment for questions. We went quite a stretch here without any questions. Yes.
How do we know all these things about the person? Maybe he was a lady, this corpse.
That's a great question. I have to look. Well, this question is, how do we know who this person was? Maybe they checked his bags and they saw he didn't have a talus, so he probably wasn't married.
How
He wasn't starting.
Maybe that's true. Good point. Yes.
how does he know that it's maybe passed away from old age?
They don't know for sure, but because they see him that he's left like that in the ground and just lying there, that's an indication that something wasn't normal. Whether someone killed him or he died on his own. But if they would have escorted him out, showed him the best way to go, made sure that he's not too tired to travel, he's not too weak, give him some food, and so on, it would have been in a much better position.
That indicates that they knew who he was.
If they
said that if we had escorted him out, if we had given him food, that indicates that they knew who he was.
and that we care about him. In other words, if someone comes through the city, there should be some program or some organization or some group that says, okay, anyone that's just here, let's make sure they have where to eat. Let's make sure no one goes hungry. Just because they don't live here and they're not settled, you can't expect such a terrible thing to take place.
Also, what happens if he manages to get past a good distance, but he's like 6% away from where he started from and 4% away from his destination, and he's still a good distance away from his destination, and his destination doesn't know he's around there, and the destination is held guilty. Instead, even though he didn't
Great
go to the
question.
destination.
It's a great question. It's discussed in Gemara that they always measure the distance because the closest city that's there is responsible. Even though you're right, he was going there. Why should they be responsible? He never even came to their city. But it goes by who's closest to. It's a great point. Very good.
It's close to Jerusalem.
Yeah, it can be.
It has to be, because there are mountains and valleys.
The only place where there's mountains and valleys. Okay.
Another question is just practically. If the place where they found the body was very close to the city, and there's no other cities nearby, it would seem that there's no need to measure. Would they still, residents still need to come down and
Yes,
measure?
they still. Gemara says they still measure, even if it was right there. We know which city it belongs to. There's a certain, I guess, inspiration that happens when we have to see everyone around has to pay attention. This is a life that ended, God forbid, and everyone around, all the cities that are neighboring this, have to know this can't happen.
So it just brings in awareness.
I don't know if that's the ultimate reason, but Torah underscores it has to be done. They have to measure all the next city around. Yes.
They didn't have lasers. It might take days to do all this measuring. Meanwhile, there's a corpse that's not buried. What's going on?
I think that they did it very quickly. And also, maybe they could bury it before and then do the eglah afterwards, perhaps. To go to Yerushalayim and get the Sanhedrin. Regarding the lesson that we have from this, spiritually, we discussed what it is materially. A person says, I can't be bothered by someone else's problems. Someone else doesn't have where to eat, or they don't have what to drink, or they're traveling alone, or they're a stranger. I can't be bothered with that. But there's a spiritual lesson as well, in addition, that we have to care about others. Spiritually, a field, they found a corpse in the field, right? A field represents a place that's not so good spiritually. Okay, it says about Esav, when Torah tells us the difference between Yaakov and Esav, it says Yaakov ish tam, yeshev eholim. Yaakov was a sincere person or a whole person sitting in the tent, and Esav was ish sadeh. He was a man of the field, ish yedei atzayid. He knew how to hunt. He was a man of the field. And when you use this term in Torah, the field, in this instance, it's corresponding to Esav's man of the field. So when you notice a person that's in the field, meaning their spiritual life is not the way it's supposed to be, they're living in a way that's counter to Torah. So a person could say, listen, why did this happen to them? It's their own problem. If they would surround themselves with people that are God-fearing, if they would surround themselves with people that are seeking spirituality, and they're around Torah learners, So then they would be great. They'd probably be influenced as well. They'd probably be behaving the right way and raising their family the right way. But if they're not, it's not my problem. I have to surround myself, this person may say erroneously, I have to surround myself with people that learn, and people that are God-fearing, and people that care about heaven, and everything else. I can't get involved with that. Says the Rebbe, who was the greatest proponent in Jewish history, of going out there and reaching out to every Jew and not measuring Yidden based on their level of religious observance, says, no, this is the lesson you have from here. You can't say, oh, our hands didn't do this, we didn't do anything to this person, we don't even know who he is, so what if he passed through our city? No, you have to go out and take responsibility and atone for it. And the same thing is when you know someone that's spiritually, lacking, go out there and encourage them, show them, help them, invite them. Everyone knows someone who's not involved in any type of spiritual life, who's not involved in Torah mitzvahs. Invite them for a meal, invite them to a class, teach them something about Yiddishkeit. Don't say, it's not my problem. In a nice, caring, loving way, do that. More so, the Rebbe says, it's the month of Elul. And in the month of Elul, we know the king is in the field. Right? What does it mean the king is in the field? So there's a famous mashal from the Alter Rebbe, which everyone knows, that when the king, before he comes to the city, he goes into the field and he greets people. Okay? When the king is in the city, he comes back home to his palace, it's very hard to get in. You have to have connections, and even with connections, you got to wait months, you have to be a person of stature, minister, whatever else. You can't just walk into the king and talk to him. But when the king is traveling, and he's in the outskirts, he's in the field, so to speak, then his sleeves are rolled up 3/4, his tie is off, he's very accessible, he's like on a campaign trail. Anyone that wants to come talk to him, he's available. And not only that, but he smiles at everyone, he greets everyone, he's happy. So anyone that has any request, instead of waiting months and figuring out the best way and talking to this one who may know that one and pulling strings, go talk to him. Similarly, Hashem, on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, he's in his palace. It's days of holiness, it's days of judgment, it's days of awe. And we have to do a lot to talk to him. Of course, it's always accessible. But in the month prior to that, in Elul, Hashem is in the field. The king is in the field. And he's waiting for all of us to come and talk to him and get closer to him, and really that he should fulfill all of our requests. And he smiles to us and he wants to hear from us. And that's why this month is a month of cheshbon. It's a month of taking an account of the prior year, of making good resolves, good resolutions for the coming year, because that's what it's about. It's using the opportunity. So this is also field. So the Rebbe says, tell the Jew who may be living a life which is field-like, without content and without Yaakov teachings of Torah and so on, go to the field and tell him that the king is in the field. And you should just turn to him wherever you are in your life. You could just turn to Hashem and say, help me. I want to grow. I want to get out of this. I want to do more. And when we do this, then when the king goes to his palace, we follow him. And all of us follow him. And we become ministers and people of stature, people that are involved with the king. We're not just, so to speak, passing we're distant people who ended up meeting the king in the field. We're one of his own. And by doing so, we all get written and sealed for a happy, healthy, sweet year.
Amen.
Lich mentioned today is 7:28. Have a wonderful Shabbos. And Monday morning, God willing, we'll reconvene and learning. Thank you.